If the world feels too loud today, you're in the right place. Let the sound of rain and a gentle voice help you drift off. Subscribe if calm moments like this matter to you. What time do you usually start listening? What's your favorite time to press play on videos like this? I was 7 when he started waiting by the gate. He wasn't ours, at least not in the way people talk about pets. He didn't sleep inside, never wore a collar, and no one ever bought him food. But every morning, when I stepped out the front door with my half-zipped backpack and mismatched socks, there he was, just sitting. Not wagging, not barking, just there, waiting. He was the kind of dog you'd walk past without noticing. Short legs, ears that stood up just enough to look curious, fur the color of dry leaves. He had a name, I'm sure, but not from us. I never asked whose he was. I don't think it mattered. For me, he became my dog without ever crossing into ownership. I started saving a bit of my sandwich for him every day, just the corner with less jam or the part where the crust was burnt. He'd take it gently, sit down 2 steps away, and eat with this slow, deliberate calm, like he was doing me a favor. And maybe he was. At that age, the world felt large and just slightly wrong, too noisy in some places, too quiet in others. But he made it make sense. A small, silent confirmation that some things would always stay where you left them. On rainy days, he waited under the lilac bush across the road. On snowy mornings, I'd see his prints before I saw him. And when I was sick and couldn't go to school, Mom told me he waited anyway the whole morning, then disappeared around lunch. Never came to the door, never scratched, just waited, quietly. I don't remember when I started talking to him. It wasn't out loud, not really. Just small thoughts, observations. Math test today. I think James stole my pencil. I hate meatloaf. And somehow he listened, not with his ears, but with something behind the eyes. A stillness that made it feel like even the things I didn't say were being heard. One day, I asked Grandpa about him. He looked out the window, saw the dog by the gate, and nodded like he'd expected the question years ago. Some dogs don't need homes, he said. They just need someone to wait for. I asked if he thought the dog was waiting for me. Grandpa only smiled and said, maybe. Then he handed me a slice of bread and told me not to forget the crusts. One morning, he wasn't there. I stood at the gate longer than usual, my sandwich corner already wrapped in a napkin, my breath making small clouds in the air. I checked under the lilac bush, across the road, even around the corner where the postbox stood. Nothing. Just wind and the soft rattle of the chain on the old swing in the neighbor's yard. I was late to school that day. Not because I lost track of time, but because it didn't feel right to leave until I was sure he wasn't coming. After lunch, I rushed home, hoping maybe he'd decided to wait for me instead. But no paw prints in the dirt, no eyes blinking up from the steps. For the first time in months, the gate looked like just a gate. At dinner, I didn't say anything, but Grandpa noticed. Didn't see him today? He asked casually, like mentioning the weather. I shook my head. He nodded slowly, looked down at his soup and said, sometimes they move to where they're needed most. I didn't understand what that meant. Not then, but the next morning, I left earlier. I walked past the gate, past the bakery, through the path behind the schoolyard where weeds pushed through the pavement and old fences leaned inward like tired men. And there he was, sitting in front of the small yellow house with the cracked mailbox. A boy I vaguely recognized stood inside the yard, clutching a bag that was far too big for his frame. The dog was watching him, not begging, not moving, just watching, waiting. I didn't interrupt. I just stood behind a tree and watched the watcher. When the boy left for school, the dog walked beside him for a few steps, then veered off toward the alley, tail swaying slightly, not up, not down, balanced. I followed him, not close enough to be noticed, but close enough to know that he wasn't mine anymore. Or maybe he never was. Over the next few days, I saw him in 3 different places: by the swings near the train tracks, behind the pharmacy, outside the retirement home where old Mr. Pavick always sat with his blanket and thermos. Every time, the dog sat the same way still, present, unhurried, as if he belonged to everyone who needed him a little. I stopped bringing pieces of my sandwich. It didn't feel right to offer anything anymore. Instead, I just looked for him. Some days I found him, some days I didn't. But I knew he was around, somewhere, waiting, and slowly that became enough. It had been weeks since I'd last seen him, long enough that I stopped checking first thing in the morning, long enough that I stopped asking Grandpa if he'd seen him around. The yellow house boy had moved away, they said. The pharmacy got a new metal shutter. Mr. Pavick's chair on the porch was folded and gone. Everything felt like it had been rearranged slightly, the same town, same air, but different rhythm, and I was moving slower. That day, school was harder than usual, not because of tests or homework, but because something felt off in my chest, a tightness I couldn't name. My friend Daniel had said something mean in the middle of class, not loudly, just under his breath, but enough that it stuck. Something about how I was always waiting for imaginary dogs. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. On the way home, I kicked a rock down the street for 6 blocks. Didn't talk to anyone. Just walked with that dull weight kids carry when they're sad but don't know how to explain it yet. And then I turned the corner, and he was there, sitting in front of our gate, like nothing had changed, like he had never been gone. My heart did something strange. It tightened, then loosened all at once. I didn't run. I walked slowly, afraid he might vanish if I blinked too hard. But he didn't. He tilted his head just slightly, the way he always did, and looked straight at me. I sat down on the step beside the gate, knees pulled up, arms around them. He came closer, just a little, and rested his chin gently on my shoe. I didn't say anything. He didn't need me to. We stayed like that until the sun began to melt behind the rooftops. Not a sound between us. Just the wind and the soft creak of something small and invisible. I don't remember going inside. I just remember Grandpa placing a cup of warm milk in front of me and not asking a single question. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I thought about what Grandpa had said, that some dogs just need someone to wait for. But maybe, I thought, some of us need to be waited for too. Maybe we don't even know we're lost until someone sits down quietly beside us and reminds us we're still here. Summer came quietly that year. No sudden heat, no burst of cicadas, just longer evenings and the slow disappearance of jackets from the hallway hooks. And with it, he returned not every day, but enough. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes late afternoon, always unannounced. Like a memory that doesn't ask to be remembered but still shows up. I never asked why he came back or where he'd gone. That wasn't the kind of question you asked him. You just accepted his presence like you do the breeze or the smell of fresh-cut grass. One evening, he followed me to the small playground near the church. I sat on the swing. He lay beneath it, not under my feet, just close enough to know. I noticed a girl on the other side, maybe my age, maybe younger, sitting alone with a cracked toy in her lap. She kept glancing toward us, her face unreadable. After a while, she stood, took a few steps toward us, then changed her mind and sat again. The dog looked at her once, then looked away. Later, I'd see him near her house, not waiting at the gate this time, but sitting beneath the tree in her yard, watching, listening. And I understood something without knowing the words for it. He was never just mine. He wasn't hers either. He belonged to a kind of space between people, the quiet space where grief waits, or loneliness, or that gentle ache we carry before we even know what we're missing. As the summer stretched, more people began to notice him. The old man at the corner store would place a bowl of water by the bins. A delivery boy whistled at him once, but not to call him, just in greeting, like two wanderers crossing paths. I watched all of this, without feeling possessive, without jealousy, just a kind of soft gratitude that I'd known him first, or maybe not first, just in the right moment, the moment I'd needed. One Sunday, Grandpa and I were pruning the rose bush when the dog wandered up the garden path. Grandpa didn't say anything. He just nodded once and went back to the shears. The dog sat nearby and watched me cut one perfect bloom, and I realized something else. He wasn't just waiting anymore. He was teaching me how to wait, how to sit with someone in silence, how to be there, not to fix or solve, but just to exist beside them. That evening, as he trotted off into the golden haze, I didn't feel sadness, just a quiet fullness, like the kind that settles over a dinner table after laughter, the kind that tells you this moment mattered, even if it doesn't stay. Autumn came slowly, almost politely. The air turned crisp. The light began to fall earlier, and my shoes made that soft sound on dry leaves that always made me feel like I was walking through an old story. I had grown taller, at least by enough, that my jeans didn't quite reach my ankles anymore. My voice had started to change too, wobbling between child and something else I didn't recognize yet. And the dog, he came less often. Once a week, then every other. Sometimes I'd go 2 or 3 mornings without even thinking about him. Then I'd catch myself standing at the gate, half hoping, but it wasn't sadness. Not really. Just that quiet missing that feels like part of growing up. I started bringing a notebook with me. I didn't write anything important, just small things. What the sky looked like, a sentence someone said at school, a question I didn't know who to ask. One day, I wrote, "I think he's still here, even when he's not." And when I reread it, it felt more true than anything I'd been taught that week, Grandpa noticed. He always did. One evening we were shelling walnuts on the back porch, our hands busy, the silence comfortable. He said, You don't ask about him anymore." I shrugged. "I think I know the answer." He cracked one open cleanly, handed it to me, then said, "Most people think waiting is about time, but it's really about presence." I didn't understand it fully, but I wrote it down later that night. It stayed with me. The next time I saw the dog, it was just for a moment across the field behind the school, walking slowly, not toward anyone, not away, just walking. He didn't look older. He didn't look tired. Just sure of where he was. I didn't call out. I just stood there and watched him disappear into the tree line, tail low, ears perked. And in that silence, I felt something settle. Not an ending. Not even a goodbye. Just understanding. That some things don't need to be explained to be known. And some presences, once they touch you, don't ever really leave. That night, I slept with the window open, even though it was cold. I left a piece of toast by the gate. Not because I thought he'd come back, but because I wanted to remember how it felt to offer something without needing anything in return. High school changed everything. The mornings were earlier, the books heavier, and the world louder in ways that didn't always make sense. My days filled up with equations, late buses, awkward conversations, and the strange, shapeless pressure of becoming someone. The gate was still there, of course. So was the path, the lilac bush, the swing in the neighbor's yard, but I passed them without noticing. The space where the dog used to wait became just another part of the sidewalk. Some mornings I thought about him, but not with the same ache. More like remembering a smell from childhood. You can't name, but recognize when it returns. Life moved forward. That's what people say. But not all of us move with it in the same way. One afternoon, walking home late after a makeup exam, I'd half failed. With my headphones dead and my thoughts loud, I turned the corner, and he was there, sitting on the low stone wall by the bakery, just as calm as always. He looked older now, or maybe I was just old enough to notice the things I used to miss. The gray around his snout, the slower way he blinked. But it was him, without a doubt. I stopped in my tracks, didn't move, just stared, heart thudding in that quiet, disbelieving way, like you found something you didn't know you'd lost. He didn't come to me. He didn't need to. I sat beside him, careful, slow, as if trying not to wake something sacred. The street was busy, cars passing, people talking, but around us, it felt still, protected. I didn't say anything for a while. I didn't need to. Finally, I whispered, "I didn't think I'd see you again." He glanced at me. Just once, that was all. And I realized in that moment, this wasn't a reunion. It was a reminder, a gentle, living memory, that whatever I was becoming, I had once been a boy with jam-stained fingers and crusts in his pocket. A boy who talked to a dog without words. We sat until the bakery closed, and the scent of fresh bread turned to soap and mop water. When I stood, he didn't follow. He stayed, like always, not waiting for me to leave, just making sure I knew the way back. Years passed, like songs on the radio you don't realize. You know until the chorus. I finished school, got taller, grew into my hands, moved into a place of my own. Life didn't speed up as much as it spread out like ink in water, reaching in every direction. New streets, new routines, new silences. The gate at the old house got painted over. Grandpa passed not long after my 20th birthday. The garden overgrew quietly, as if mourning him in ivy and shadow. I didn't visit often. I told myself it was because I was busy, but really, I didn't know how to sit in a place that used to know me better than I knew myself. Then one evening, helping Mom clear the attic before she moved, I found the box. Cardboard, slightly damp at the corners, with my name scribbled across the top in Grandpa's familiar hand. Inside the usual report cards, crayon drawings, a pine cone I once thought was magic. But beneath all that, wrapped in a faded dish towel, was something small and wooden. I unwrapped it. A whistle. Smooth, carved, simple. I didn't remember it at first. Then I did. I had found it once in the garden, tucked beneath a stone near the rose bush. Thought it was treasure. Grandpa had smiled, told me to keep it, said it was for calling what matters. I never understood what he meant. Until now, I held it for a long time, thumb tracing the grain, and without knowing why, I brought it to my lips and gave it one soft, breathless note. Not loud, not even clear, just enough to stir the air. Nothing happened. Of course not. The house was empty. The gate, long still. But I felt something shift inside me, a memory realigning. That night, I walked the old route, past the school, past the bakery, down the lane behind the pharmacy. Everything had changed, but everything remembered. I could feel it in my chest, like someone lighting a candle in a room you thought was locked. At the end of the path, under the same tree, there was nothing. No fur, no ears, no tail, just grass. Still, but I sat anyway, and I waited, not for him, but for the part of me that used to sit here all those years ago. And in that stillness, I swear I felt it sit beside me. I came back one last time, years later, when the house was being sold. The garden had turned wild, not ruined, just free. The fence leaned inward, ivy wrapped around its ribs like old arms. The lilac bush was taller than I remembered, and the gate, though rusted, still opened with the same soft sigh. I walked through slowly, not to disturb anything that might still be dreaming. Inside, the rooms felt smaller, as they always do when you return grown. I wasn't here to reclaim anything, just to look. To thank the walls, the floor, the corners that once held my childhood. In the garden, I found the old path to the rose bush, now almost swallowed by grass and dandelions. I knelt beside it, fingertips grazing the soil, and I found it not the whistle, not a collar, not a paw print, but a flat stone with something etched faintly on its surface. One word. Here. It might have been a trick of time, or something Grandpa had left. Or maybe something else. I didn't question it. I just sat down beside the stone and breathed. Birds moved in the trees above. The breeze carried the same scent it always had, damp earth, memory, and lilac. I closed my eyes, and in that stillness, I didn't see him, not clearly, but I felt the weight against my shoe, the presence, the pause, the moment before movement, and it didn't matter whether it was real or not, because he had waited and I had come. And that, I think, is all either of us ever needed. I stood, brushed the dirt from my jeans, and whispered, "Thank you." Then I walked to the gate one last time, opened it, and stepped through. Behind me, nothing followed, but something stayed.